we usually have a small feedback session at the end, so just 5 minutes in the end. So we'll share we have a form that Sharat will share at the end. So. Yep, I think we should get started. We are 3 minutes in, and I know you have a lot to share. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for agreeing to present to us. It's really an honor to have somebody with so much experience in the industry and such a diverse experience in industry. Just talking to you 10 minutes before, I think my head is just bursting with the possibilities of content, and not just within the technical writing field that we talk about, but our skills are really valuable, not just within our organizations, but for the country. You spoke about the startup ecosystem, which is absolutely fantastic. You're really helping the country grow. So I would to the audience, I know many of you are already familiar with Sai Kavita, and you've probably heard her at on many occasions. I would let her present all the details of her rich experience, but just like to quickly welcome you to this session. Thank you so much. Thanks all of you who have joined. A special thanks to all the volunteers who are actually make these sessions happen, especially Anu. I know she has to dial in every time because she is a host for the WebEx. So thank you all of you for enabling this. So let's get started.
Thank you, Asha. Thank you, Anu, Sharat, Chaitanya, and everyone. Very honored to be on this platform. And I'm very, very grateful to this opportunity. So once again, a very, very happy morning. And I hope this session is not preaching, but it's more sharing a topic that's very dear to my heart, largely coming from a writing background. I felt outside in view is a very important engagement considering my own journey. So what I would like to do, the topic may sound a little intense, but absolutely not. I've tried to put it in a very, very light framework. I've modeled the whole conversation around, an engagement that could help you customize, build, and, take your leadership forward. So the topic is largely outside in view, the content integration, curation, and collaboration. It's not really into building content from the framework that we are used to, but looking at what is it an outside in view can help. As an example, taking my journey, I started my career as a writer, though my education is computer science engineering with specialization in AI, and I had a heterogeneous, I would say, 9 yards of software that I touched in my career. That includes, release engineering, product engineering, technical support engineering, analytics. So all of these areas that I have been through has given me a different view on how we can strengthen the content. So with that insights, let's get started. So I would like to do a quick check-in. Request all of you to share one phrase, one thought, one emotion, anything in any order about what you think about this session. You can put it on the chat window. Just 30 seconds. Love that. Learn and unlearn. I strongly believe in that philosophy. Learn, relearn, unlearn. Yes. Great. Thank you. With that, let's look at what I have, what I would like to share. I'd like to start with a prologue, largely to bring, or rather synergize all of our thoughts into some of the important aspects of what we deal with on a day-to-day basis and how we can extend that thought, like extrapolate, extend whatever you would like to visualize. Then why is outside-in perspectives are important? Why do we think it's important, right? And what are some of the outcomes that we achieve with an outside-in perspective? How do we achieve a growth strategy through content collaboration, right? I request if somebody's unmuted, kindly go on mute. And look at content integration, curation, collaboration, data mining in a perspective, right? I would like to again say, I'm not bringing in tools. I'm not bringing in a framework and say, this is it. This is the prescriptive effort. No, the intent is for a dialogue to start through these sessions, as each one of you are documentation leaders in a leadership role. Every individual is a leader, not by title, but by what we want to intentionally move forward as a milestone. So that's what I would like to discuss. Then let's do a small exercise for about 5 to 7 minutes on summary and reflections. So with that, let's just get to another blank slide. So I would like you to share some of the thoughts here. As a content developer, we are all familiar with DDLC. As a content developer, you have a certain ecosystem that you're engaged with, which we believe as an ecosystem. And then we also have an ecosystem, which is, what is the outside in perspectives coming in? We are not touching about the inside out because that's already there with each one of you with your own interesting in and internal collaboration. So I would like to see some of your thoughts come into what's a content developer world looks like. Anybody would like to unmute? This is again another 30 to 40 seconds. You can type, you can add your thoughts. What's your content developer world look like? DDLC world. Creating content, okay? Process.
Kavita,
Right?
this is Devi.
Devi.
I would say, so it's content should be customer centric. So
Customer centric.
yeah.
Brilliant.
So we are hearing a lot from customers. So what we can better experience as so.
Yes, better experience, customer experience, research,
And
curation, excellent. Yes.
And whatever the customers are, visiting a site, it's whatever the questions in their mind that gets really addressed when they get to the products. So
Okay. Thank you.
Very simple. Yeah.
Indeed, it is simple.
Hi, this is Mridula. I would
Yes.
like to mention that content also contributes a lot towards the brand building of the company.
Excellent. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, we had a similar conversation, early on, how, a content, an information developer can literally help the brand of the product, service, whatever your organization is into. Brilliant.
Content does help in improving the user experience of the product.
Absolutely, Prima. Brilliant. With that, let's see what I'm seeing, right? So, yeah. So this is how it looks like as a content developer, information developer, technical writer, whatever our title are, purely we are on the content side of the business where we are looking at our day-to-day documentation development lifecycle, how that's evolving, who are there in that ecosystem. You engage very closely with your software or product engineering or whoever you are engaged with, or your technical support teams, or your test development engineering life cycles. You have plenty of life cycles. You have agile forms of development. You have various types of things that are helping you synthesize and bring the content together, right? So that becomes one world that we are part of, which is where we are actually producing the content. Then you have another interesting and impressive world, which is in your neighborhood, which is your customer. Whatever we do today is because of what we want to deliver to the customer and how we want the customer to leverage Then we have our friendly social media, as friendly as it can get, where there are happy voices, there are dissatisfaction voices, everything, and a lot of noise that gets created in the ecosystem. Then you have your support engineering, technical support. There are different names, customer care, whatever you would like to call, whichever industry you are. If you're in an online industry, retail industry, manufacturing, enterprise, irrespective of it, there is some level of support. Even within your own organization, you have IT support. All of them have a lot of content that they are building, that they are actually putting into any kind of a knowledge base or things that are getting evolved there, right? Those are very, very important ecosystem that we need to look at constantly. And then comes in your outside in view, which basically is where we want to look at today, right? The dialogue that I'm going to have on the next slides is largely trying to bring those perspectives more as a individual who's been in the content world, more as an individual who's experiencing the content world, and as an individual who can contribute back in what I'm listening, what I'm learning, and what I really care about, right? So that's how I would like to put my perspectives of this session. With that, let's look at customer and community, which play a very major efforts or ecosystem that actually bring in a lot of things into your content, right? These two are critical aspects: your customer, your community. Community means your own writing community. It is social media community. It is several other communities that are your stakeholders, your shareholders, every other individual that you touch outside of your writing world. It could be developer, test engineer, early adopters, you have your beta programs, whatever your organizations are set up to. With that, let's try to get what is it that I'm talking so much about the perspective, right? So I would like to categorize the perspectives basically into three aspects. One is, what's the customer insights landscape that is telling us? With that, what's our business strategy and what is our outside in perspectives that are actually touching us, right? So the reason I categorized here is, as a leader, as every individual who is on this call today, you have to categorize into certain segments. And when I say outside in perspective, these perspectives are going to become your fundamental foundation. If you take your pyramid, however you build your foundation, it becomes that, okay, number one, customer insights landscape. What does it mean? All of us are doing our bit to understand what the customer wants. There are various touch points with which you want to get the insights of this landscape. This comprises primarily listening. The more we listen, the better we are able to fabricate and synthesize a strategy that's going to help us. That means whatever you are listening in here actually feeds into your business strategy. You are listening to the customer, you're trying to understand their point of view. Maybe there are things that they could get self-help from the content that is available, or maybe there is opportunity for us to recreate those content to sort of add more use case scenarios, right? Or anything that you could do. Do we understand the customer needs and the benefits of your product or service or anything that you're doing for your customer? Do you really understand that? If not, the good news is there is a lot of way you can approach and understand. Very important, map the customer journey. There are absolutely brilliant ways to map customer journey. Now, there are organizations that has very well established customer mapping journey. You have closed circuit feedback, you have roundtable feedback, you have journeys that are extensively practiced to actually look at bringing how the product is evolving or going through the journey. Then here we are as a set of a writing community where we may not be able to have access to it. In such scenarios, how do you go about tracing? So apply leadership there as a leader, see how you can go reach out to various stakeholders, get insights and go with a visual map. Anything you go with a visual map, you can still get those insights. Look at the feedback loop. I know a lot of content today, all of you must be having a documentation feedback link where we receive a lot of feedback. Sometimes we don't receive, but there are ways to work back with the customer to get a feedback with the help of the team that's actually the touch point or customer facing. Look at what the field insights are doing. Field insights are set of individuals who are your field engineers who are actually responsible for taking the product and installing, or rather architecting it to your customer based on their need, customize, and then help them, leverage that product, or it could be a service that you're actually, building for your customer, irrespective of it, what is coming from the field. Engage and have a lot of conversation. Look at those. And technical support, design constraints are always there in the product. If you know release notes, we have a lot of things that we say, this is the symptom, this is the workaround, these are some of the things. Now, if you take that and map it with your technical support data or customer care data, you can see a correlation, because a lot of these workarounds, symptoms, and issues that you call in your release notes are actually getting raised as a customer issue ticket that needs to be resolved. So if you can templatize some of those with the help of a content that could help the support engineers or customer care engineers or whoever front-ending, it's a huge support. So look at those land signs. What are the dependencies there? How do you even look at the product perspectives? You have multiple forums to do that internally. So this is very, very critical for me. And every conversation that I've had, be it with the universities or be it with the startup ecosystems or be it within my own organization, what I see or observe is they are today asking for representation from the writing community to be part of those conversations, which is a great opportunity, which is you are getting invited because they see the value in content and they're bringing you. There are scenarios where you may not have that opportunity. You need to become that voice at the table to make that happen. Now, what does this customer insights landscape do? Essentially, it brings you into a business strategy where you need to look at what's the mission and purpose of what the product or service is trying to achieve, and how do you evolve your content around it, or an industry segmentation. Your strategy may need, suppose if you have a product X that is touching a healthcare industry, a retail industry, an online industry, manufacturing, enterprise, any industry, right? Or a banking industry, you need to look at where your industry segmentation, and are there anything specific that you would like to capture and bring. So industry segmentation is very important. The reason I'm calling that out is a lot of engagements that I'm observing, I'm learning, is that they want to segmentize the content based on the industry for how a certain product and use case scenarios are showing up in that heterogeneous markets, right? So wanted to touch upon that as well. Customer outcomes, obviously anything that we do, we look for an outcome. You're looking at the insight, you have a strategy, you look at the outcome, right? So it's all interrelated. More important is today your products are getting diversified into various industry. Diversification plays a very key role in expansion in the market. With that, what do? You look at those scenarios. Then comes your innovation. Now, innovation, I would say two parts. One is innovation or a small improvement that could, give a higher outreach. That is innovation. Innovation necessarily does not mean you're doing a patent all the time. It is anything that is an improvement. It's an innovation to me, right? And again, digital transformation is the buzzword in today's industry. Every segment of industry wants to go digital, wants to digitalize their content, want to look at how their products are, very digitalized in terms of how it is serving the purpose of why it was built, right? And then you have to work towards removing a lot of internal silos. That should also be part of your strategy. The reason I'm calling out internal silos is times and experience have consistently shown us that there are organizations that may not have a very clear roadmap on where all our content writers should be engaged. So this is an opportunity to have that as part of your strategy, not as an afterthought, but during the process of the design of your content itself. With that, let's look at what is it this is going to bring to you. Here is what I would say. Outside in perspective, number one is leadership. You as a writer, you are a leader. You are very important aspect. What is the leadership that you're bringing to the table to take that happen? Your strategy, your insights, a combination of that is your leadership, how you want to drive it. So that's number one. You can take the essence of all of this, formulate into a strategy that's going to drive us to the next purpose. Customer centricity, we already heard, right? Customer is the center of everything we do. Better customer experience. The customer are saying, are we listening? Are we able to bring those feedback into our content and drive it through that? What is the insights coming out of all of your data mining, trend analysis? What is it saying? The question is, can everybody have an analytics person sitting next to them and helping them out? The answer is no. You have to really go look for open source tool if you don't have an analytics team that can give you insights, or work with the in-house analytics team as well, right? And then you look at your customer effort score, net promoter score. These are very, very important terminologies that are there with every organization. It's important as a documentation leader to really look at what it means. So why outside-in perspectives are important to summarize? You need to understand your customer insights. What's the landscape of that? Formulate a business strategy that could bring in the elements of all of the things that you believe is important for the effort that you're investing. And then look at these aspects, like everything what you do is directly proportional to a net promoter score or a customer effort score or your customer experience, whatever you want to call within your own organization, leading to customer satisfaction. With that, let's see. What does this lead into, right? So let's look at what it's leading into. Primarily long-term customer value realization, where we look at how from a content perspective, we can help realize those values, what we are building into the content, increase the customer satisfaction. We all may think how just 1 or 2 corrections could help. Don't ever think like that. Every bit what we are doing as a documentation leader, how each one of you are playing a role is directly proportional to the customer satisfaction. Retention and loyalty is very important. Today, if you do a study, you can look at a lot of Harvard studies or any consulting houses that do this. Why are we losing customers? Where is the loyalty getting lost? Right? If you look at those aspects, it comes back to an information that may not have created or a support engagement that could have not given them the right feel that they belong or the product belongs to them or how they want to leverage. So we lose. So instead, what can we do as a writing community? You can do a lot, right? That goes into building of the customer retention and loyalty. And then from a writer community, what I feel, apart from all the other things, I'm not touching on the basics of what you do, the fundamentals of what you do, not touching on the search engine or any of those. But what I'm saying is revisit your strategy attributes. What's your business strategy based on what you have understood? Can you revisit those strategy and add attributes? You don't have to add very big phrases or anything to make it a lot more look different or feel different, but more important, is the strategy working? Also look at how informed insights, what you receive, can those informed insights help you refine your decisions? Make informed decisions based on what the data is telling you. What course correction that you need to do. You need to make that call, and you need to definitely be the influence to make those changes, largely because it's going to help in one of the above 3, which could be a value realization or a customer satisfaction or even in retention. Customer retention largely also goes back into how you're educating the customer about the product, how you're even bringing the expansion opportunity, which is going back to the writing community, what we can achieve, which is informed insights that help in better decisions. Define measure. To me, whatever we do today, you really cannot manage things when you don't know how to measure. Now, what are these measures? What are these KPIs? You have like tons of material available. Don't go after 100 KPIs. What is that 1 or 2 strong things that you would like to do? If you have a very long list of 10 metrics, take 1 or 2 metrics that you believe is very critical and make sure you're aligning to that measure along with how you want your organization leadership to look at that measure, what support you need from them, right? So that's very important. And also set up a governance for the content excellence, right? So definitely that's a very key aspect of what we are doing today. With that, let me go in and talk about another very important aspect which could help us, which is outside in perspectives. How is it impacting us, right? As a documentation leader, here is where I feel these perspectives will greatly benefit. Again, I'm not prescribing anything. All that I'm sharing is these are perspectives that will help us. These are perspectives that will help impact, create a more positive effort into the ecosystem that you're part of, right? So it's your thought leadership, the credibility with which your content is going to help build the customer loyalty, customer retention, or innovation that you're bringing. Again, innovation is directly proportional to every small process improvement, process change, or anything that you are making, which is creating a huge difference, or something big that you're really intending to do. So it is everything within innovation. It's not just patent creation. Entrepreneurial outlook is very, very critical as documentation leaders, because every outside-in perspective is giving you that richness for you to absorb and look at what you need to do, right? And breaking silos. Often we are, as a writer, I remember in my formative years, we did face a lot of challenges where here is a silo, the writer does something, the engineer has given something, and you have a test engineer who has done few things, and you have a program manager who's telling, yes, the product launch is going to happen, you have early adopters, you have so many things, everybody working in silos. We have experienced that. Of course, every organization today has matured and evolved to break those silos, but still it's a work in progress. So if you're observing that as a leader, please take note of it and include that as part of your strategy, and collaborate beyond boundaries, right? That's very important. Now, the reason why I want to conclude this topic on outside-in perspectives before I get into the next set of topics that I would like to touch upon is, what is the distance traversed? You have a content that you've created, you have a customer experience. What is the distance traversed, and what are you getting from that distance? So that, in essence, to me, enriches your outside-in perspectives to actually make a difference. Whatever we do, be it on the content side, be it on the product side, be it on engineering, any topic you take, you do have gap. The ability to reflect on the gap and curate those gaps is what I would say is directly going to map to what you're seeing here as a documentation leader, right? So try to map that. Also look at why content integration and collaboration are not visible. We are collaborating, we are talking to stakeholders. Maybe in certain scenarios, you may not have that luxury, but you're making an effort. In areas where you have very intense integration and collaboration with your stakeholders, with your community, still it's not visible. So what is it? That means there is a continuous loop or rhythm that needs to be worked through in the system to look at what I would term as self-reflection. These are very simple 3 techniques that get often discussed. In my experience, that's the reason I'm sharing. Again, this is not prescriptive or saying exactly do this, but the very thing that always catches my attention is the distance you traverse from the content to the consumption. What is it that's having a gap, or what's working? What needs a course correction? What's really needs some kind of an innovation to be brought in, or your creativity to be brought in? With that, before I move to the next topic, I know we can have the questions towards the end, but anything anybody has put on the chat that I've not seen? Okay.
Nothing.
To conclude on why, how, what impact, to me, if I have to make a statement, it's directly proportional. Every outside-in perspective is directly proportional to strengthening and increasing the power of the content that each one of us builds and its outreach. That's very critical. So integration, curation, and collaboration, if you sum it up, is what you're going to get as a customer value. Now, how you do your integration, curation, collaboration, each one of you have that level of expertise. All that you need is few ideas, few best practices that can evolve and mature with time, right? So with that, let's transition to another interesting aspect, what I would like to share. The reason I felt this topic is important, again, I would like to say these are a comprehensive list of things that I have experienced, which I put together, and I have been sharing these thoughts in several sessions that is helping, and I've received feedback that this worked or this didn't work. So it helps me curate this set of possibilities. So that's what I want to talk about, which is achievable growth strategy. In terms of a growth strategy, all of us are clear that, okay, this is what we need to do. This is how we intend to do, but the outcome doesn't often come as expected. The good news is there is learning. The good news is also that there is ability and forums like these that are bringing in different perspectives that could actually help each one of us learn, take away, and then go implement or customize it to what you need within your own ecosystem, right? With that, Why do we have to focus on achieving growth strategy? As a documentation leader, each one of you need to look at customer satisfaction, right? So all of us talk about it, but you need to really see data which can help you rework on where the customer satisfaction is very happy. What are some of the things that they're happy about? Continue to build on that and see where you have opportunity to bring those back into element of business strategy. Technical writer community engagement is so critical both for internal and external. Internal is the ecosystem that you're engaging. External is the ecosystem that's actually giving you all the outside-in perspectives that I talked about. Be it your social media, be it your support or care or whatever your organization customer touch points are, bringing those. And communities like these, Twin, which are very, very critical role play that they come up with, bringing all the best practices that could be leveraged, because we are always constantly in search. We have that curious mind where we want to go and look at those areas which is going to help us. Leverage content for product service differentiation, right? Whatever content we are doing, how can it differentiate? One is you're writing the content because it needs to accompany the product. It's a must have. Those are done, right? That's the ecosystem we are in. But what's the differentiation? Is there one differentiation that can literally help you sit aside and do something different? It could be a very simple change or an outlook that you're bringing in based on what you defined as a business strategy that's going to start making a difference. Remember, whatever you're going to do as those strategic changes, it's not like you do it today and tomorrow you're actually seeing the outcome. The differentiation needs to be experienced, felt, touched, and then starts pouring in. So you constantly need to have a rhythm and governance that I touched upon. Then you have your development strategy. Very important. All of us are working in a global engagement. We have a lot of local, we have a lot of global engagement. Very important for your use case scenarios. Can you attach the regional and then the cultural aspects that could actually make a very big effort into your whole perspective of your strategy? What I mean is you have a certain product. How is that product use case scenario being leveraged in, say, Middle East or in America's region or in European regions or Asia? How is it making a difference? Are there any difference in the customer segmentation, the way they are using a product, the way they're engaging on a product? Yes, there are differences, largely because every region, there is an influence of that local culture on how you're engaging, be it the product or service or engagement or communication or what is expected. So if you can bring in those subtle touch points into your content, not saying that, okay, this is the culture I'm talking about. No. Use case scenarios. Look at what are the use cases that are coming from a region. Why is it so different? Same use case scenario has succeeded, say, in India, but it's not succeeded in America's region. Why? See if there are things that we have deployed or done differently. So those subtle differences are very critical for us to absorb. And then your internal growth, your innovation, your best practices, ability to scale and yet be consistent. Consistent is not just doing same things over and over, but the outcome needs to be same or continue to grow. That is consistency and ability to scale. Is that something that your content is providing today? If not, there is an opportunity for us to revisit. External growth, everybody knows we are talking about digital transformation. We are talking about expansion. We are talking about diversification of products. What does this all mean in a perspective? That's where you need to talk to your marketing team or the sales organization that's actually taking those services and products to the market to understand why a certain product is being taken to a customer. If that person is a first-time user of the product, then what comes with that knowledge, right? And then effective storytelling, that's part of, I would say, today technical writers are pioneering the storytelling engagement because of the ability to communicate, articulate, and exactly bring in what is really essential. So on that note, I'm going slightly faster just so I don't miss out on what I want to convey. Content integration, I would like to touch upon something that I often hear in the market, often experience, often taking the feedback in terms of what can be done better, irrespective of any word, right? So content acquisition and delivery is heavily talked about today, right? When you say talk content acquisition, it is where is your strategy changing, or why is the content strategy changing? Because of feedback that you're seeing from blogs of individuals who are using your product or services. They may have been written something which is very, very good, which has opportunity for us to improve and things like that, right? It could be content acquisition from various formats. Utilization of the content, you can see the pattern. Of course, you have, I'm not talking about site visits and everything. You can comprehend what is required, but content utilization is playing a role. And to top it all, you have a pattern, right? Patterns are very, very important, especially in data and analytics. Patterns play a huge role. And patterns can play a huge role in any segment of industry, healthcare industry. You can talk about any industry, right? And content is there in all these industry segments. So how do you recognize the pattern? Are there something that's coming out of the pattern which can help you redesign your strategy, redesign your content for better outreach? And then transformation is happening. So digital transformation to me is a combination of what your organization purpose and mission is, how it is aligned to what kind of strategies they are doing, and what is the outcome they're expecting it to the outside world, and how those feed back into your own engagement. Which means as a leader, documentation leader, you're looking at the strategy, you're looking at data mining trends and analysis, however you want to package it, and the content type, right? So these are very critical elements which help in digital transformation. Intake, very critical. So to realize a value, your intake is critical. What's the goal you want to achieve out of that intake? You have a set of intake. It could be a product, it could be a service, it could be use case scenarios. The sum of all that becomes your intake to actually share a certain goal of what you want to achieve. That achievement cannot be a one-pronged approach or one size fits all. You need to do a lot of customization, which means what does it result in? It results in a value, which I would say equates to your intake, a goal, and a customization summed together, right? So that to me is a very critical piece. As documentation leaders, I would like you to pay attention, and it would be great to have these conversations, have these dialogues with your stakeholders. They may not listen, they may not be taking it very seriously, but consistently ask for a seat at the table that will give a voice to the content. So continue to do that. Irrespective of the size of the organization, we need to do it. We continue to fail faster, iterate faster, and then it starts the success which start coming in smaller steps. Some get very fast, some take a longer time. But the truth is you're going to get with these very, very strong fundamentals. On that, let's get to content curation. Right? So producing engaging content, again, I'm not getting into the details. The areas that I'm touching upon are conversations that are very big in today's engagements. I have been listening to these. Everybody talks about produce engaging content. The writing community is producing engaging content. How can you better them? How can you curate them? How can you have a regular rhythm? It's not like I curated today. It's good. Next 3 to 6 months, I'm not doing anything about it. It's working. It's working great. What can you do to better it? Right? Curation helps in building credibility and trust. They say today the new fuel is data, right? When you go and say something to your management, they say, we trust you, but bring the data, let's review it, right? So you come up with a proposal, you come up with a strategic engagement on what aspects you would like to curate. Why? What is the, who is the person who is helping you with certain curation opportunities, be it positioning, the brand, everything what we talked about, what you shared as your expectation goes directly into content curation. Bringing in outside voices, which is what we are having as this session today, to bring in those perspectives, to even go and approach and see how to bring in those perspectives, right? So those are very important. And why are we doing all this? Because we are a customer-centric organization, right? Our content is customer-centric. When I say organization, it refers to the content as a world, content as an organization, content on what it gives as a value to the world. And how do you reduce the gap and increase your quality touch points? We saw what kind of potential gaps that can exist. So as a leader, what are your efforts to build those touch points? Then discovery and continuing to bring content in focus in scenarios where content gets forgotten, nothing wrong in going and reminding and bringing that voice back at the table, right? So with that, let's look at collaboration. Collaboration, you have your agile collaborators, very critical, your field, your support, your early adopters, and your beta customers. I would recommend every documentation leader to build this into their strategy, to see or rather work directly with these early adopters who give the brilliant feedback that directly goes into your content before the product actually goes into a GA. Acquire your content by studying the journey. Like I talked about the traversing, the distance you've traveled from the content to the consumption, from the content to the customer. Those distances, what kind of touch points you had in it. Build your own customer journey or pick up a journey that is already existing in your organization. Understand those milestones or touch points that are coming out, extrapolate those and see how it feeds into your strategy. Build content models, multidisciplinary content collaborators. Both these are very important. We often talk about simulation. We often talk about, content modulation and things like that, but we're actually not seeing models. I request the leadership here who are on this call today to build the content models, bring content model itself. How do you build content models itself as a session where all of us can actually share some of the models that you have built? Trust me, that's going to be a brilliant perspective that will help us get into this level of conversation into more depth on improvising our content and helping the content realize its true potential. With that, segmentize the use case, because a product, when we build a service, when we build, all that is great. But the platform where it is consumed, the industry, how it's looking at your product or service, there is a lot of variation. If you can identify those variations, discover and curate those, bring it as, again, a strategic point into your content, I think that gives a much broader perspective. With that, another very, very common terminology or rather effort that is being talked about is content data mining. You have data mining, which is done on finance data, on your enterprise data, on your web content, social media, you name, everything is there. But how are you going to leverage? What's the dialogue that's really occurring around data mining, right? To me, it is you have an in-house analytics team, partner with them, or if you have added analytics skills to your own skill set by doing few open source engagement to see how things are, brilliant. Just go with it. Look at what is your content type talking to you? What is it telling to you about? Like when you mine the content, you get a lot of different inferences. Again, how you manipulate those inferences into building an informed decision through which you're actually going to refine your own content strategy, that becomes very critical. Look at how you are comprehending trends, right? You can make a lot of decisions, but every decision cannot be implemented back. So look at what is it that you really want to take away, because data gives you a lot of analysis that can be done. Those analysis gives a lot of outcome. From those outcomes, what you really intend to do is what we are talking about here, right? So data mining is a very, very, I would say, a very broad terminology that's used across the industry, especially in today's world, right? So you hear more of it. You want to be part of it. You want to do a lot of work, but look at where and how you really want to pick up those engagements, right? And represent. One very important thing that I learned in several of the things, and that was a very common dialogue, is visually, how are you representing your content and what is the content evolution for your product cycle? How is your content evolving? Have you done a visual representation? Have you done a visual mapping, gone back, leverage that as a voice at the table? I have seen that happen. It's happening more. I've seen that in universities. I've seen that in research. Got to learn that, and I said, okay, let me add this back into this conversation today because it's really going to help us. A visual representation eliminates a lot of different perspectives, or people may have a hesitancy in even understanding what is this person saying. But with literally a visual representation, you can show how the content is evolving. And when you show how content is evolving, everybody has a stake in it. The whole ecosystem has a stake in it. They will listen and they will come back and provide all the required support. that will lead to your unified knowledge base. Of course, it has a lot of connotation on knowledge base. We all build it every day, but look at making a difference there. What are the pain points and what resolution did those pain points receive? And can you build those into a journey mapping and evolve that as a separate addendum for the whole content that you're curated? So that's the dialogue that's happening. That's the dialogue I wanted to bring in as a perspective. So you're all getting that insights from here. With that, let me pause and allow you to think through, and then we can get into Q&A. And I want to hear to some summary of what you're taking away. That's why the slide is blank. I think we have about 10 to 12 minutes. Right, Asha? Is there?
Yes, we do have. Yeah. So any questions, anyone, you can unmute and ask, or type in chat.
So I would like to bring one more important slide, which is reflections. So if each of you as a leader can get back to these three things in your summary, if you can share that, we can go around the table. As a documentation leader, what are the top three things you would like to focus? It doesn't have to be a company confidential info that you want to share, but more so from a very high level perspective. What's your North Star vision? Right? So when you see here outside in perspective, what's your North Star vision? What do you want to build towards? And then what are the two gaps or opportunity where you can literally apply the whole concept of what we talked today, the integration, the curation and collaboration, reaching to a customer value and discovery, right? What are the content trends and assessments that you are working, or if something is underway, that reflection and summary would greatly help all of us. So let me pause here. Let me leave the slide here. I invite for a lot of conversation from all of you. With that, the platform is open.
Thanks, Kavita. Thank you so much for that session. Definitely a lot to think about. Definitely a lot of things that all of us need to focus on, especially thinking about the future, right? Not just how the department is running right now. Have you planned for the future? And I think everything you spoke about is very future oriented, making sure that we are planning for a long time ahead and not just how things have worked so well so far. Okay, I don't want to take up too much of your time to interact with Sai Kavita, but just wanted to point out that there is the feedback form in the chat. Please do click on it and give us feedback, because it will help us organize the sessions in the future. Yes, the floor is open to you.
Thanks, Kavita. Though I'm getting to meet you after almost more than a decade, but something that I've started working and maybe I need to work more is visual representation of content evaluation.
Okay.
So this is something that I think I need to focus more on.
Okay, that's good. Thank you, Prema. Any questions, any perspectives that you would like to share on some of the dialogues that we had today?
Yes, if anyone has any similar experiences of having done any of this in your organizations, it would be great if you could share what you've done it and how you've done.
Hi, this is Mridula. One thing that I have observed in my current organization is a huge gap between the knowledge-based documents and the user guides. So it has been increasingly seen that, the information captured through the customer support team and recorded in knowledge base is not, passed on to the documentation, which makes the documentation, or when I say documentation, I mean the user guides, seriously lack in use cases, And to some extent, I feel when a person goes through the user guides and does not see where it is applicable, that person will not be able to 100% relate to how that information can be truly leveraged and implemented in the real life scenario. So how do you think we can come across a process where we can ensure that what is getting captured in the knowledge base gets the relevant information gets documented in the user guides?
Yeah, brilliant, Mridula. This is a brilliant question and a very, very practical thing that's happening. I can share from my own experience.
Thank you.
As we talk currently, I am with Microsoft in a customer technical support, customer connected experience role, which means providing a lot of support to our customer. And one of the efforts, because I've had the documentation background and my current engineering role on data and AI for the products, is making sure so the conversation that happened post providing a resolution, we go back to the program management team and we are making sure the respective content owners are part of the conversation and roundtable that we provide as feedback, so that can be leveraged as part of their next set of content that is curated. Sometimes we wait, sometimes it gets immediately, implemented, right? So that's happening, and I would urge, you to talk more to the support engineering or whoever is in the leadership role. Take your proposal and say, this is exactly what I need. Go with the visual representation of how you want to engage and collaborate with the support organization and make it happen. If you're in an organization where you have more than one product, say you have 10, 15 products, it's impossible to take for everything. Start with one, demonstrate through your visual representation what's the difference the conversation and the dialogue has resulted in, improvising the content and curating it. Go back with the same proposal with I would say, a supportive engagement and outcome to demonstrate that this is working and hence this should be implemented. Easier said than done. It will take time, but my recommendation is it does work. So kindly see if you can, implement these techniques which can help you get more integration to close the gap.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and purely go with the customer value that you're going to realize. Right. It's not for, content or engineering, it's for the customer, right? So go
Absolutely.
with that.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I would be curious to know what's some of your North Star vision. What do you want to do with outside-in perspective? Anything that's coming on top of your mind?
This is Mridula again.
Yes, Mridula.
For me, North Star metric would be usability and case deflection.
Okay,
Kavita.
perfect, great.
Yeah.
That's very critical in today's support organization. Case deflection is effectively done through brilliant content that can help the customer not reach the support at all. They
Right.
deflect the moment
Absolutely.
they observe a problem. Yeah.
So for me, Prema here. So for me, it is like earlier we didn't have any visibility of technical writers or content developers in the ecosystem. Like they just came in during the delivery, but we could develop an insight wherein we have set up this portfolio, and I'm looking ahead to have more of visibility of writers in the ecosystem.
Okay. Let me stop the sharing so everybody is on the screen. Yeah.
Hi, this is Sunday here. So great session, Kavita. Thanks so much. Yeah, I think it's always challenging for, I think, our community to demonstrate customer value in dollars, right? So the actual ROI, we
Yes.
talked of case deflection, all of that. So are there any like specific metrics or anything that you can share where we can actually quantify, what we are doing?
Yes, there is a metric that I can definitely share based on my two experiences with two of my earlier organizations and my current. So one approach is to look at all the cases, your customer care, whatever your organization, technical support organization, all the cases that has come because of documentation, right? If you can get your analytics team or whoever is your in-house team that can pull out the data, and if you can ask them to provide the data in two areas. One is how many documentation errors led to a case or a customer calling us. Another one is what kind of resolution did you provide? And look at the resolution as was there an opportunity to self-deflect? When you have this data, most of the time, the financial alignment of the data may not be directly visible to everybody. It could only go to certain leadership to map and see what is the dollar value that they have been saving through fixing these errors and then mapping it back, right? So that data is available and you can definitely get that financial mapped also. And again, Sandhya, to your point, it can get you that data only with certain set of people, not with all. So if you can work with the leadership to see the data and then translate that financial into how you can improvise on the content, it's possible. So to your answer, the data is definitely available in the form of documentation errors as one bucket, which could actually unblock a certain deflection. That's one statement I would like to make. The second is some of the areas, like suppose if you have a certain customer case that has come in and you have engineers who are working on it, their inability to solve due to confused documentation, or either they don't understand what the case requires or the problem statement is, or what kind of resolution to be given, because they all are referring to your technical guides that you have built, right? So identifying how many such cases received a bad customer survey and analyzing whether it was due to a content that was missing, which could help improve a faster resolution, shorter customer pain time, those kind of metrics you can look at. So these two have, I would say, very, very strongly helped us in recovery, right? So those are two things that are done in at least 2-3 organizations that I'm aware of.
Yeah, thanks so much. Thanks, Kavita.
So I have a question like, would it be a good thing to track the usability of the documentation itself, and do we have a metric around that which would help us understand the patterns of usage of documentation? So will that be a helpful scenario to consider?
I would say if you can add elements to documentation usability, because again, it's a very broad term, Shashikant. Everybody talks about documentation usability and metrics. If you can perhaps attach those metric to customer facing metric and usability, that would be a lot more engaging to actually see the outcome. Example would be what Sandhya just called out, where you can see from the usability of the content perspective, were there case deflection? From the usability of the documentation, what was the wait time till you provided a resolution? And third metric could be, the content gap that could have enabled a better customer engagement, right? Not from pure play technology point of view, but available technical information, the way we have actually curated the content. So if you could be specific on what you want to trace on the usability, or I would say integrate usability into the customer journey to get the outcome for the metrics that you're looking, that would be more powerful. And that study is currently getting done. There are a lot of Harvard papers again that is talking about how this can be enabled, just so giving you some inputs as well, because that's being leveraged.
Yes, yeah, definitely. So particularly what I was thinking through is it would be helpful. I worked with cases in the past, so I know it, so how we worked on improving the documentation a lot, reaching out to the PGs and particularly the issue documentation I talked about. So what I see is the feedback from the customer is one part, and the second part is how much time they're staying on each page. So, and if the page Azure has something like, is this information useful in the certain scenarios, we had seen that. But if we can look at the page time, what is the time, how many people are using that, and how much of that is really in spend the spend time of the customer, on that particular page. If they don't like it, they will move away from that page without giving the feedback. So if we can relate these particular metrics along with the customer feedback, that would give a single page of documentation. So majority even on the support engineers who are working, what they do is they record the document, recorded its documentation bug, but in certain scenarios, it is getting missed, particularly with the CSS data.
I don't know if it was just me. I did experience a little bit of breakage in the voice, but to comprehend, maybe getting close to what you just described, data mining, the content data mining part that I talked about, 4-5 things that could be effectively helping us as a, some of the things that I'm experiencing, probably that could help if you can apply 1 or 2 from that context. The slides are available with the team here, so they can help you with the slides as well.
There's a question on the chat. I'm not
Okay.
sure if Geeta is still around. So she was asking about the region culture perspective you spoke about. Could you please give instances from your experience?
Yes, sure. So this is very important, which is an area of big research and opportunity for content curation. So Geeta, if you're not on the call, but I would like to leave this input is, for every product today, when the use case scenarios are built, research is very strongly bringing in few aspects of culturally, how is the product being leveraged? For example, if you have, let me take the example of, say, Microsoft Word. If you are looking at a region for using Microsoft Word, it has a lot of accessibility features. It has a lot of, you can actually speak and talk and you can record, the content gets built in where a lot of healthcare professionals are leveraging that in a slightly different format than us, how we are developing the content. They actually, speak the content and that gets in the form of a write-up there, right? So if you can look at those aspects, there may be regions which need not use English, but some other language. How feasible and accessible is your product as a use case for that particular region? And if that is there, then is that use case being brought into your content? So that's a very simple example that I'm calling out. So like this, from a core technology perspective, the usage of a certain product or service could differ from region to region in terms of consumption. If you can find an algorithm or understand those patterns and bring it to the content as a separate addendum, that will be very, very greatly useful, because especially in the support side of business, they look for those kind of available information for providing faster resolution. So that was what I was referring to, Geeta, if that helps. Sorry, I know we are over time. Back to the...
Any last questions? Yes, I know we're a little over time, but if anyone else wants to share something or ask anything, please do, considering we still have 36 people on the call.
Thank you so much, Kavita. This is Devi. This is a great and really wonderful session. We learned a lot of things like integration, curation, and collaboration. Hope the slides really help us to explore more. Thank you so much. We are looking forward to more sessions from you.
Thank you.
Yeah, do add that in your feedback, because in the feedback form that Sharath shared, because it's really helping us organize future sessions. There's a section in the feedback form asking for what would you like to hear from us later on. So please do add that. Thank you, Devika.
Sure, Asha. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, if no one has anything, is that at ARM we do work very closely with the support organization. In fact, together we are a separate organization called Partner Enablement, which is technical communications and customer support. And I realized that even in previous organizations, even though the organization was not divided that way. We could have actually interacted much more with customer support and made sure that we are actually talking to them on a regular basis. And somebody did ask that question of how do we make sure that the Kba information goes into the user guide. I think my experience has been, if our writers are regularly interacting with the customer support team, so that you see yourself as one team together trying to help customers. It ensures that there is constant communication and constant feedback coming in, and information goes into the user guide as a regular practice. Not just it's part of the workflow, but that it is the conversations that make it very rich, right? And one thing we have been trying to do, we used a tool called Coveo, which actually measures case deflection. Customer comes onto the site, types in a case, and then content comes in, and then they no longer file the case. So that is considered as a successful case deflection. So that tool has been helping us, measure how many cases were deflected because of content, right? So I would really encourage, if your teams are not working with a support organization, to build up that relationship at the managerial level, so that if you're really closely connected at the top, and encouraging your teams also to work closely together, whether or not you're part of the same hierarchy in the organization, because it can only be beneficial, to both of you and to customers in the end. Yes, if we no longer have any more questions, I hope all of you have filled in the form. Thank you so much, Sai Kavita. That was really, really wonderful session. And clearly, we need to invite you more often, because there are lots of subtopics that you mentioned on, and like you mentioned also what the audience mentioned, right? There's much more to explore here. I think it's really fantastic talking to senior people like you, because it really gives us both breadth and depth of perspectives on what we really need to look at and plan for the future. So thank you so much. Thanks everyone for joining.
Bye.